Have you ever wondered how to paint realistic background trees? In this video, I'm going to show you two different brushes and how to apply paint like the pros. You'll see the close-up brush strokes, and in the middle of the video, you'll get to see some mistakes that I made and how I took care of them. Before we start experimenting with brushes, it's important for you to see where we're going. This is a photograph taken from the same field that the painting was done from, that shows the outline of the trees. Notice that some are taller than others. There are dips in the middle. Notice that there are a lot of sky holes, and you end up with a lacy effect at the top. So I'm going to show you how to use a miniature fan brush and a liner to put in these background trees. And with this little fan brush, I'll put a link in the description box below. We're not dipping the whole brush in the paint. I want you to just put a little bit on the corner, tap that off, and then let's see what we can do with this. So remember, we're trying to get a lacy effect. We're trying to get some lower and higher places. We want this to look organic. We want it to look, we don't want it to look like grass, but we want it to look like trees, so you're going to need some rounded places. And you can experiment with different fan brushes that you have. It's important to turn the brush periodically. It's human nature to want to get a symmetrical, repetitive stroke, so you have to really kind of be mindful to work around that and force yourself to get some different strokes. If you get a little bit of a blob somewhere like there, that comes from putting too much pressure on the brush, so I'm using a very light hand. But if you do get a blob, you can put some other blobs around it so that you don't see the silhouette of it, and then build up from there. And then of course you can use a regular brush just to go in and put the bottom in. I've already put the bottom in my painting. And then let me show you this with a liner brush. This is a Rosemary & Company size 0. They call it an ivory rigger. A rigger and a liner are the same thing, but it's a brush with long bristles that is designed to be used wet. So I've dipped it in water. I'm going to put it in a little paint, and that should be very fluid. You don't want it so wet that it's dripping off your canvas, but it needs to move, and you need to be able to whip that brush easily. I use a liner to sign my paintings, so that gives you a feel for how fluid it is. So then you can take this little liner and go in and put in some of those little marks that are going to give you that lacy effect near the top. And just like the other marks, they need to be organic. You need to make sure that you're not doing real repetitive strokes, trying to get something that looks natural. If you end up with a funny shape, just add something to it. You particularly with trees, you don't want them looking like cotton balls, but they need to be fairly round at the top, depending, unless you're doing pine trees or something. But so like right here, to me that looks more like grasses. It doesn't look like a tree. So a tree is going to have it's going to be wider at the top, at the bottom usually, than at the top. So there needs to be some kind of shape to it that suggests that it's a tree. I think it's good to, rather than having all these little gaps in between, even your gaps you need to keep organic looking. So I'm just going to fill that in a little bit. And I'm trying to get a lacy effect at the top, but you can get too much lace. So if that happens, just fill a little bit of that in. Just keep it loose, don't overthink it, but just try to keep your strokes natural and varied. Okay, I've moved over, I'm real close up to the painting, and I'm going back to my small fan brush. And once you've wet the brush, you see how it's not really the same shape anymore. So I would be try to dry that off as much as you can. And I'm going to, so I don't want to get, you know, I want there to be variation. I want some of these trees maybe to be up here, but some down in here. But I don't want to cover up all this glow. I want to keep these pretty much just right above what I've already established here, but rather than this looking like grass, I want it to look like trees. So this is behaving very differently now that it's wet. Kind of odd. I might try not filling it in so completely and see if I like that look. So far I like this. It's not quite as filled in as it is in my photograph. I love how you're still seeing that glow coming through and those holes. It just gives this real lacy effect. So I have such a light touch on this brush. I mean, I am barely tapping it, barely letting that touch the canvas. I am not pressing. If you press that in, you're going to get a big blob. I'm turning that brush, turning it. Trying to keep that real varied. And I'm probably still going to go in with that little liner brush. Okay, I've gotten back from it and it's really exciting. It really looks great from a distance. I love right in here, we've got a little bit peachier glow coming, so I'm going to try to preserve that, and that might be something as you get back, see what you want to preserve. So let's just keep on. So again, I'm trying to hold this brush very lightly, very bouncy, trying to leave some interesting gaps. If you want to fill in more, that's fine. But I would suggest, particularly if you're fairly new to this, leave some nice space. You can always go back and fill in, but you just can't really take away. You could take away if you could go back in and fill in this other color, but because I've got these variations, and it would be difficult to get it to look right. So I'm just trying to be very light-handed with this, and I may speed this up for you. So I wanted to get back and let you see what was happening in this field in real life. The trees go up on either side, and then the section in the center is further away. So if you want to get that illusion, if you'll keep the trees in the center of the painting very small and let them get a little bigger and more pronounced as they come up to the sides, I think it will give you the illusion that that centerpiece is much more in the distance. So that's what I'm going to try to do. You'll see me dropping down in size in the middle, and then I might get things a little bigger on the sides. I'm getting some globs here, and I don't know if that's just because my brush has gotten too wet, so I'm going to clean that brush off again. I feel like I'm losing the laciness of it, and I'm really leaning from a distance to not be in front of the camera. Since I'm left-handed, it's kind of tricky when you've got the camera on the left. You know, I think it's important too that the left side of the painting not look like the right side. When you're doing something organic, it needs to look different. I'm gonna have to Get back again. And all right, now there I got a real big blob, but you know, it's okay. If that happens, don't freak out. It can. You can even put in more black around it to just kind of fill that in again, so you don't see quite how blobby it is. So I'm going to get back and look at this. So I've gotten back from it. I'm looking at this tree line. I think it looks really nice. I like the lacy effect. I like that it's irregular. There's some more solid places. I like that there's some gaps there. I can see things right in this area leaning all to the same direction. So I might go back, see there like all of those. That's when I was painting to one side and trying to reach. So here I have the tree line after using the fan brush, and I'm going to go back over it now with my little liner. I've wet the brush. You don't want the paint dripping. I'm sorry, the paint or the water. You don't want it dripping on your canvas, but you need to have enough water in there that brush will kind of whip around. So I don't want these to look like grasses. I want them to be a little rounder, to look a little more like trees, but you don't want them to look like cotton balls either. So we're trying to, as with everything else here, vary the strokes, trying to keep it very organic. So I'm just going to kind of go up in here and kind of whip that around, particularly these places where I feel like it's looking like grass, trying to right in there, that to me that looks like grass. Trying to get a little more roundness to it. You have to keep wetting your brush. If you get too much water in it, like right there, it's just kind of turning gray. So be careful about that. There might be some places where you just need to go in and just fill in more. You need to be careful if you start seeing a pattern of the sky holes, that can start looking unnatural as well. So you may need in places to go in and fill that in a little bit. That'll really change the way it reads. I have found a liner brush is almost like a fountain pen. There's some that just really suit my hand and some that I just can't stand. I encourage you to go to your art supply store and just either get a variety of liners or just try it in your hand, pushing on it until you get one that it feels like it has the right amount of bounce for use.